Thanks for tuning in to the Urban Scope podcast. I'm back with more WNBA news. And of course, the draft was just a couple of days ago. And I want to just give my reactions about the draft because I was very shocked what happened at the draft, especially all the mock drafts I saw, all the team needs that I felt the teams needed. They really didn't go that way for the most part, especially in the early rounds of the first round. And it was just a lot different from the expectations or from the needs that we thought these teams were, or the directions these teams were, we thought they would go. So, of course, AZ Fudd goes to the Dallas Wings, and I really thought it made more sense to get a pure point guard at that time, especially having Paige Beckers and having somebody to get her the basketball in creative ways and just create more open shots for her and just open up the offense more. I thought it would make more sense, or at least go get a big post player like our fam. That would make more sense. But to get another shooter next to Paige Beckers, I don't know the direction that Dallas is going in. And they had the number one pick 2 years in a row. So the direction might not be the most legit direction or the best direction, but unless they're trying to create a Golden State type atmosphere where they have a Steph and a Clay and you're making AZ Fudd and Paige Becker Steph and Clay, if they're going that direction, that might make sense and just to play small ball. But it doesn't make a lot of sense in terms of um, the flow of the offense. So I really was questioning myself about AZ Fudd on this first pick. She was projected to be the first pick most of the year, but I think her draft stock went down a lot, especially towards the tournament time because she was just pretty much a spot up shooter at that point. She does have great defense, so maybe they need that as well. So maybe that factored into it. But for the most part, I thought Olivia Miles still would be a best pick at that spot. But congrats to AZ Fudd for getting that pick and being alongside her girlfriend and stuff like that. So I think that'll work well for the camaraderie of the team. But also, I think if they can be efficient shooters, they can be a problem for any team in the league. But I just think they don't have enough post play. So a lot of the players like the Atlanta Dream who have BG now and they have Angel Reese, that'll be a problem for them. Even for Cardoso, when they have to see her in Chicago with the talent that they put around her, or De'Erica Handbeat, they won't have anybody to deal with those players, so they will have to deal with that. So, but I think Olivia Miles to the Lynx made me scratch my head as well. I've seen a couple of mock drafts that had her going that way, but I didn't think it was going to go that way because Courtney Williams is still an elite point guard. She's averaging 6 assists per game last season, and she's getting better at the point guard position, especially with that team and the shooters that they have and the scores that they have and Deficia Collier and Kayla McBride and those others. So, but I think Olivia Miles, if she doesn't have to start right away because of Courtney Williams, unless they're going to move Courtney Williams to the 2 spot and McBride to the 3, Nafisha still can be at the 4, and you got Alana Smith at the center position. That's a pretty elite lineup if you can put that together. A little bit of smaller side of the lineup, but I think it'll still be a pretty elite um, lineup. Or if you have Olivia Miles on the bench, you can also alternate these guys, alternate these women and have elite point guard play the whole game, which can be a life changer, especially coming off the bench. If Miles is coming off the bench for a little while, but I think she's ready now. She spent 5 years in college, so I think she's been ready. She's one of the best passers I've ever seen in college in women's college basketball, and I believe she'll carry that over to the WNBA. So I think that's still a good pick for Minnesota, and luckily Olivia fell to them because now they can do a lot of different things offensively, and they can hide her on the defensive end if until she can get where she needs to get defensively. Because I think Courtney Williams is pretty elite on ball defender. Our fam and Flage somehow go to Seattle, which I think makes a lot of sense to pair our fam with Malonga. Now you have a long front court that teams will have to deal with. And like I talked about with Dallas before, if Dallas has to see Seattle, it's going to be very difficult for them because they won't be able to go in the paint and they don't have enough post play to generate enough offense to be any kind of threat to Seattle. Now, Seattle will be a young team because they will have most of their starters will be first and second year players. They had to rejuvenate after, the exodus of Agumake and Skylar Diggins after they left. So they're really getting younger, but they're building their nucleus. And that's what I like about this draft. A lot of teams are rebuilding their nucleus as these older players are exiting the league and just getting older and becoming, backup players and things like that. So they're rejuvenating right now, getting ready for something special as far as just creating a new WNBA, especially with the new CBA and the money that's flowing through and all the investments in the league. They want to see a lot of young talent, a lot of promising superstars that are coming up. And Seattle just got two of them because our fam is very rangy. She can dunk the basketball. She can, get to the basket with ease. She has post moves. She has all of that. And then, of course, Flage, she can score. She has to do better with the shooting, but she's very good defensively. She can be that leader that you need in that point guard, and she can bring all those great things. So I think that was two good picks for them. Another shocking thing was all the 5 UCLA players drafted in the first round, and I thought a lot of them were. It was a reach to draft those players that high. Not to hate on UCLA or felt like they were overrated or anything. But I just think when you pick all of those players from a championship team, a lot of those players are dependent upon each other and the chemistry that they had. These players played several years together. Unless you're going to draft these players together, it doesn't really make sense to me to draft all of these different players in the first round. And uh, it's a thing that in NFL they do as well. Mostly, if you have a Super Bowl championship team, players, coaches and executives from other teams are trying to break that team up. So they'll overpay a lot of different players that was on a championship team because everybody felt like they were an essential piece. But, for UCLA, it was mostly Lauren Betts and Kiki Rice, but more so Lauren Betts. But the whole starting lineup pretty much got drafted in the first round, which I thought was a reach because there are a lot of players that should have been drafted in the first round that wasn't, like a Ashlyn Jackson, a Tanaya Latson. These players were very worthy of first round picks. Even a Cassandra Prosper for what she brings defensively and the upside she has on the offensive side as well. So a lot of players I feel like they get drafted at the expense of UCLA winning the national championship. These are good players, but I don't think they're great enough just to be drafted in the first round. But we'll see. Like I thought Kiki Rice was drafted too high, and Gabrielle Jaquez was drafted way too high. Because Flage, I think, could have went before those players, but they was drafting them back to back, and we thought they was just going to draft the whole team at some point. But I think Flage didn't go to Chicago, and they ended up picking Jaquez because Angel Reese is from LSU. They probably, it didn't end too well with them. So I don't think they would draft another LSU player for a while, at least not a black one, I don't think. So I don't know what's going on with Chicago. I know they rebooted, and so maybe they didn't pick Flage because the new players and assets they got, they felt like they can win with that now. So they're not really necessarily in rebuild mode; they're in retool mode. Is what I'm getting from Chicago because they did pick up some key pieces around Ariel Atkins and Cardoso that I think they thought they can win this year. But if you're thinking about the future, you didn't really draft for that. Now, a surprising team um, in the draft, I think, was the Fever because they drafted 3 SEC point guards or 3 SEC guards to strengthen their strength because they already have Kelsey Mitchell and Caitlin Clark. So they drafted Raven Johnson, of course, from South Carolina, Justine Passat from Vandy, and Jessica Timmons from Alabama, which all of those are great um, at their own specific things because Timmons is a shooter, not as efficient, but she's very rangy and Passad is pretty much some of the same, but Raven Johnson is very defensive minded, and I've seen a lot of the memes and conversations that Fever drafted Raven Johnson because so she won't lock up Caitlin Clark again, at least not in the game, probably in practice. But Raven Johnson did an exceptional job in that national championship game when South Carolina played Iowa a few years back, and Raven Johnson made a name for herself, but she's very good defensively. She has to work on the shooting and the scoring, but I think that'll come along. And a lot of people weren't projecting her a couple of years ago to be a first round pick. I always did because I thought her defense was so elite that basketball is a two-sided sport where you have to play offense and defense, and that does factor in. And there's not a lot of players that are willing to play defense like she is, especially in a sport where offense is so geared for the offense, especially all the rules. NFL is like that as well, but basketball is very geared for the offensive player because you can't really touch them. So if you can find a great defender that can defend without fouling, you definitely have to pay those guys or you have to accommodate those players because it's very rare. I think the Washington Mystics, um, the Mystics were very on brand for their picks, and a lot of mock drafts pick these picks with them picking Lauren Betts and Cody McMahon. I think Cody McMahon has the potential to be the Rookie of the Year in the WNBA, just because of her unique skill set, especially if she can get up and down the floor. She's uh, a freight train coming down the lane. She's very fast and quick as well. So, and she has deceptive speed, especially at her size. You don't think she can move that fast, but she does, especially in transition. So what she was doing at Ohio State and what she ended up doing at Ole Miss was just phenomenal for a player of her caliber and her skill set. So I think she'll be a great addition with Shakira Austin just getting paid, with a Georgia Amore coming off the injury, with a young Kiki Arifin, and they created this great nucleus. They are very young, but I think there'll be a dynasty to come, and they'll be a force to be reckoned with once they get into full gear. And if they can stay healthy, that's the key piece, especially with Amore and just coming off that knee injury that she had. But I think Washington Mystics will be a top 3 team within, a year or 2 because they are building this team together that's just great together. And I didn't even mention Sonia Citron, which I think, um, proved a lot of doubters wrong, and a lot of people who didn't know about her game are familiar with it now. So, they have the great pieces that came together. So, and then lastly, a thought I had is just, Medina Okot putting her with Angel Reese and Brittany Griner, and I think Brittany Griner, has a few years left, so they can replace Griner with Okot and just mix it in because I do believe that Medina Okot is the most underrated prospect in this draft because she only played 2 years in the states, so she was not really seen or highly recruited. But what she did at South Carolina with the double doubles and the rebounds and just her intensity and tenacity on defense, she's going to be a force to be reckoned with as well. And her post moves are improving every year. So I think Okot would be a great addition with Gray. But I do think overall, that Seattle won this draft by getting our fam and getting Flau'jae Johnson because they have 2 elite pieces, 2 pieces that are looking very promising for the future, and they didn't overreach in this draft. So tell me your thoughts about the WNBA draft, and until next time, I'll see you next time.